All right, this will be a brief unscripted video. Actually, it won't be too awfully brief, just because the virtue of the procedure we'll be flying into Reno. This will be the RNP RNAV RNP approach into runway 34 left. It'd be RNAV RNP Zulu for those of you that want to follow along with the charts into runway 34 left at Reno. The simulation is paused right now, and that is because we're going to spend a couple minutes and go over the approach plate. This is a really interesting approach, and the purpose of this is really to demonstrate the RF capabilities, the radius to fix capabilities of the Majestic Software -8 Q400. And so to that end, what you see right now as the sim is paused, we're in the process of a descent down to 15,000 feet towards the Mustang VOR, which is the transition waypoint into the transition fix into the approach for runway 34 left. So that's what you see right now. We're paused. The panel is pretty much set up for the arrival. The reference speeds are set, and the barometric pressure is set. So we're pretty much set for the arrival. And what we'll do is once we go over the chart, I'll unpause it and give you a demonstration of the RF capabilities here. So to begin with, we'll go over the chart a little bit. This chart is coming from the Avlasoft EFB, and I don't have it tracking the aircraft right now because I want to show you the Mustang VOR. This is where we're headed. Again, this is the transition waypoint into or onto the approach. From here, we will track radius to fixed legs all the way around the lake here, as you can see, all the way around the lake and in for the non-precision approach into runway 34 left. Most of the airplanes in Flight Simulator, in fact, the only two that I know of that can accomplish these radius to fixed legs, and essentially what we're talking about, a radius to fixed leg is an arc from one waypoint to the next as opposed to a straight line. The NGX, for instance, treats radius to fixed legs as straight lines. Then they shouldn't be. It's actually a constant turn from one waypoint to the next. So I did try this approach in the 777. It flew it. The 777 flew it really well, from PMGG, but on the navigation display, it drew some interesting lines as it was trying to render this approach. And here in a minute, when we go back to the navigation display of the -8, I'll show you that it renders this approach really, really well. But nonetheless, in the NGX, for instance, this approach would happen much differently. It would be all straight lines as you came at. Of course, on the chart here, it looks like a straight line, but if you bring up the FAA chart or the Jeppesen chart, you'll see that they are true arcs, radius from one fix to the next. So that's why they call it radius to fix. So that'll be the plan, and we'll demonstrate that, and hopefully those of you that fly the -8 will be able to reproduce that. It really is an interesting approach to fly. I'll switch back over to the cockpit view. This video will take a little bit longer than some of the other vignette videos, just again because the procedure takes a while to get around that lake. As you can see here in the flight plan, I have began the procedure at FMG, and I've plugged in the arrival. So these are the various waypoints along that RNAV RNP approach into 34 left at Reno. The missed approach procedure is also in there. The VNAV is already set up based on the charts, the altitude that it needs us to be at the specific waypoints here. So that's already set up. We are about just under 10 miles from FMG. So I'm going to unpause the sim, and obviously FSX is going to need a second to update. I've run on real time, so well, it was a quick update. So again, as we approach FMG here, I'm going to widen that. You can see just this these perfect RF legs that the -8 draws. It's very, very unique in the flight sim world. This is this is the only plane I know of that's capable of not only flying the RF leg, but also of depicting that on the navigation display. So about 8 miles. What do we got? 6 miles out from Mustang. Mustang will begin that left-hand turn to begin the approach. If you're following along on the charts, from Mustang we'll be headed to the Tipio waypoint. And making the turn here at Mustang. And as we look at VNAV here, I believe at Tipio we want to be at 13,000 feet. True, we do want to be at 13,000 feet at Tipio. So we will level off here briefly at 15,000 feet, and then I'll bring up the VNAV. So this approach will be flown in LNAV VNAV. Would be the proper way to fly this approach all the way down to the minimums. Speaking of minimums, I forgot to set that, so we'll do that as we make this turn here. Minimums are 4771. That in 2 or 3 pieces, 4,771. There we go. So the minimums are now set. So again, if you're following along in the charts, we're currently on the leg from the Mustang VOR to the Tipio waypoint. I want to be at Tipio at 13,000 feet, presently at 15,000 feet. Because this is an RNAV RNP procedure, we're flying magenta needles. Give it 2,000 feet per minute in the descent. And you see we've got about 3 minutes here before we start our descent down to 13,000 feet. If I didn't say it previously, I'm going to try and keep the speed at about 230. Would probably be flying this leg at 250 to even 280, but I do want to keep it a little bit slow so we have more time to talk about some of the things that we're doing. Those of you familiar with the Dash 8, we've got the top of descent depicted here. I've got the weather radar on my side. I've got the terrain map on the first officer's side over there. Go ahead and... Right now what I've done is I've turned on the standby hydraulic pump, the PTU, the auxiliary fuel pumps, and the auto feather. That's just part of the descent procedures in this aircraft. The camera effects that you see are coming from Opus FSX, Opus camera views. I get really excited about this approach. It's something I've been wanting to see replicated in Flight Simulator for a long time. This is the first plane that did it. Again, I took the PMDG 777 up and tried it. It flew it really well. It just didn't draw these, widen this angle, it just didn't draw the circle, I don't know what to call these, the radiuses. Didn't draw the radiuses. It didn't even draw them as straight lines. It kind of had some pretty unique way of depicting it. It was kind of all over the place, but you'll see, like, if this were the NGX here at the Tipio intersection, it would draw a straight line from Tipio to Jobco. So essentially I would be cutting across the northwest corner of this lake here. But again, the Dash 8 does a great job of flying that radius, and it will take me all the way clear around the lake. The RNAV RNP Zulu into runway 34 left at Reno. If you haven't brought up the chart, you ought to do it. inside at 2 minutes here. We are set up the LNAV or the VNAV, and let's get an idea here. After 13,000 feet at Tipio, our next altitude will be 11,000 feet. Set 11,000 feet. And then after that, we'll be on our way down to 8,100 feet. Again, I'll try to keep about, at least for a while here, I'll try to keep the speed up around 230. Out from Tipio. You'll see that I'm about to intercept the VNAV path here, so the aircraft will start to descent down to 11,000 feet. Did I not select? I didn't, did I? I didn't select VNAV. That's okay. The first mistake. What we'll do is we'll go in a vertical speed descent here until we pick up on VNAV. So I'll select VNAV to arm it. Guys, when I was preparing for the descent there, I forgot to select VNAV. But no worries, we can catch back up real fast. And we've just picked up VNAV path after my mistake. And now you'll kind of start to see just a gradual left-hand turn here, just a very shallow left-hand turn that the aircraft is making. I'm not trimming the aircraft right now. This is just the shallow left-hand turn, and it will maintain that constant turn. You see, we're still on path here with our LNAV. It'll maintain that constant shallow left-hand turn all the way around the lake here. If this were the NGX, we would be cutting across this northwest section of the lake here, because again, the NGX would have drawn a straight line from Tipio to Jopka. Making some adjustments here to our altitude. I'm going to descend down to 13,000 feet. Then I've set VNAV up for Masu at 8,100 feet at Masu. All the way around this lake. It's a lengthy approach, but I think it's well worth, guys, I think it's well worth watching the video, because this is really, truly is a first in flight simulator history. For those of you that enjoy flying RNAV procedures, this really is a first. The RF legs, and you'll see that on a lot of charts in the airports where you have to maneuver at low altitude in areas where there's terrain, like Reno. Another good place to see some approaches that require RF legs would be into Palm Springs, KPSP. If you fly out there, there's some good RNAV, RNP approaches that require radius to fixed legs, and the charts will actually depict that. If it's going to require an RF leg, the chart will say that. Whether it's a Jeppesen chart or an FAA chart, the chart will notate that it requires RF legs. I'll give you an idea here on the EFB where we're at. We've already set up, but I've got just a couple minutes here to kind of tell you what my thought process was. When I go into the perf page, I can see that we're going to be landing at about 55,000 pounds. We've got about 5 minutes before we start our next descent. About 55,000 pounds. So when I check the tables, guys, flaps 15 for 55,000 pounds, it's roughly I'm going to use 57,000 pounds. It's roughly 121 on the VREF and 122 on the approach speed. Got those backwards, don't I? 122. 122 and 121. There we go. And in doing that, I think I changed up my altimeter setting. Altimeter setting should be 3012, which it is. Okay, we're good. So anyway, I just set the approach speed and the reference speed for flaps 15 gives me 122 and then 121 respectively. You see, we're still just skirting this lake here. Skirting the lake. Great approach at night if you've got folks, if you guys are using FTX Global and the vector lights, it's a great approach at night. Really neat lighting. Now we're going to arm VNAV. Let's see here. We're going to take it down to, what did I say, 8,100 feet. There we go. Now VNAV's armed. Actually, I think the mistake I made last time was I armed VNAV before I changed the MCP altitude, and apparently it doesn't take it if you do that. You have to lower the altitude first before you set VNAV. So that's where that problem was. That's okay. The point of this video is simply to demonstrate the RF legs, which it is doing quite well. Just basically started on the north end of this run, or this lake, and we've been full circle around the lake. Speed get away from me here. feet by Masu, and then all the way down to 6,400 feet for Gucky, or I'm sorry, 6,800 feet for Gucky. I can't say enough how impressed I am with the RF abilities of this Dash 8. It is a phenomenal simulation anyway, but to have the ability to fly RF legs is just, it's exciting. So once I start my descent here, once I pick up the VNAV path and I begin that descent down to 8,100 feet, I'll go ahead and set my MCP altitude here all the way down to the lowest published altitude on the approach, which is Gucky, 6,800 feet. And you see VNAV path is coming into play right now. We picked up VNAV path, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that MCP altitude all the way down to 6,800 feet. You just heard, I accidentally pulled the power levers back into the beta position. We will continue a descent after Gucky, going off the chart here between 120 and 140 knots. About 140 knots will be our approach speed, so we'll be descending at about 743 feet per minute all the way to the missed approach point. Our minimum descent altitude is 4,770 feet. So, in terms of the flight mode enunciator here, we're in LNAV and then VNAV. And again, typically on an RNAV, RNP approach, that would be the way you'd fly it. You'd fly it in LNAV, VNAV, whether you're in the NGX or the Dash 8 or the 777 or the, of course it's not LNAV, VNAV in the MD-11, but it would be nav and profile. And you fly that all the way down to the, you can fly that all the way down to the missed approach point in LNAV, VNAV. And of course, the missed approach point, we have to have the runway environment. We've got to be visual. This is a non-precision approach, so by the time we hit the missed approach point, we've got to be visual, or we've got to go around and try a different type of approach. On our way down to land B. Land B for 7,400 at land B. Land B is about 9.6 out. Just to kind of gauge our speeds here. It's a great day to be flying in Reno. Check. What I'm doing here, Phil, is I'm tilting the weather radar up. As you can see right now, it's tilted up 3 degrees. Pretty typical at the lower altitudes. You want the weather radar pointing where the weather would be. And you probably can't see it on the video. I'm just now starting to pick up runway 34 left. About 5 out from land B. We want land B at 7,400 feet. We're still on VNAV path. Gucky, we will continue our descent at about, what do we say, about 750 feet per minute down to our MDA of 4771, minimum descent altitude. Of course, on a non-precision approach like this, you know, once you're visual, you can, the plane is yours to fly. I'm going to leave it on the, I'm going to continue to let the auto-flight system fly us an LNAV VNAV until I get to the Gucky, and the reason I'm just to demonstrate how well this is flying the RNAV RNP approach. Pretty flawlessly. The only hiccup we had was my fault. Leaving Mustang, setting up the VNAV path. That wasn't the plane though. That was my hiccup. Okay, about 9 miles out now from the runway. On our way down to 6,800 feet for Gucky. Gucky's about 7 miles out, so we'll start to configure the plane for landing as we pass Gucky.
Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain.
We're right where we should be in terms of altitude here. On our way down to 6,800 feet for Gucky, according to the chart, so we're good. The aircraft will level off at 6,800 feet. And as it does, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the auto-flight system. I will continue descent down to 4,700 feet. Again, we're going to shoot for about 750 feet per minute, according to the chart here. Go ahead and start to configure for landing as well. So, flaps 5. We have flaps 15 landing. Gears coming down. Flaps 15. Another flight in the Dash 8, I'll explain what I did right here. Reduced power landing. Essentially, I'm still landing at my cruise power setting of 850 RPMs. Although what you see is that my condition levers are all the way up. And the way I accomplished that was by selecting this reduced power landing button and then immediately going condition levers full forward. And then in the event of a go-around, it will give me full power, but it still allows me to land with reduced power. If that makes any sense.
$1,000.
And I'll recap that on another video of the Dash 8. Like to cross that runway threshold, gentlemen, at 50 feet above the ground, and the VREF speed plus whatever wind correction we've got. Winds right now are light and variable, so no need for much wind correction. One of the things you'll find in the Dash 8 and even the 7.3 when you compare it against the 777 is it takes quite a bit more small corrections in the final phase of flight here on the approach. I like planes like that, so I think that's why I like the 737. You've actually got to fly the plane. I enjoy it. Those PAPI lights are not coincident, so we're looking for 50 feet across that threshold.
100.
Coming up on the dispense threshold.
40. 30.
It's a power on landing
20,
at 15.
10.
At flaps 15 in this plane. At flaps, at full flaps, you'll chop the throttle just barely. So main gear touchdown, I go into the disconnect, fly the nose wheel down, and then I can go into the beta on the power levers. I will stop this recording as soon as I get past the hold short point here. Past the hold short point here, start getting the aircraft cleaned up. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you have a chance to do that approach yourself. Again, one more time, that was the RNAV RNP Zulu into runway 34 left at Reno. The purpose was simply to demonstrate the ability of the Majestic Software -8 to fly radius to fixed legs, and it did phenomenal. The only hiccup we had on that flight was caused by me. I didn't set up the VNAV correctly, leaving the transition waypoint into the approach, but the plane flew it marvelously. It was a really neat experience coming around. We'll look at it one more time before I close off the video. It was a really unique experience coming around from Mustang, from the Mustang VOR, all the way around the lake here, Lake Tahoe, and the Majestic Software just did a phenomenal job with that. So I thank you for watching, and we'll pick you up on the next video.